looks like there may be a couple more people who need to be seated. Okay. At 6:32 p.m., this meeting is called to order. Please stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dietrich, Mrs. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Elling, Mr. Johnston, Mr. Knopf, Mr. Koch,
Present.
Ms. Lynch, Mr. Scholes, and Mrs. Smith. 7 members present.
At this time, I will make a few introductory remarks, which will include the ground rules for this evening. Freedom can be scary, and all self-governance is difficult. The decision-making processes of our governmental bodies must be visible to and aided by the public. This meeting and others like it in the future are important to all of us because it is important that all of us take part in our self-governance. And I thank all of you for being here this evening. School board members tonight are being asked to respectfully listen to ideas and not comment on the ideas they're being presented. If clarifications are needed for me and for Elizabeth, who will be taking notes, I will ask for clarification. Once documented, I will read out loud the idea to confirm that we have correctly captured your intent. Please keep your presentation ideas to less than 4 minutes. The focus of tonight's meeting is to generate ideas that we can potentially implement within the next month or so. If you have specific examples of safety issues or other off-topic comments and questions, please bring them to one of our regular board meetings, the next 2 of which are scheduled for the middle of April. Or as an alternative, please email your comments and questions to your school board representative, or if you are more comfortable doing so, email them to the full board. Since the purpose of tonight is to gather some near-term ideas, I am asking that we please stick to that topic. If at the end of the meeting you think of an idea that was missed at tonight's meeting, again, please feel free to email your ideas to your school board representative. School board members will not be commenting on the ideas that are presented. That is the typical and standard practice of this school board during public presentations. Butch, I'm going to proceed with the agenda for this evening. I'm moving forward with the agenda at this time.
Text from both Wayne and Paul, and they are on the meeting.
Mhm.
However, because we're not set up, at Zoom, and be able to respond or anything like that, they wanted me to let you and the rest of the board know that they are here.
Okay, thank you. The first item on tonight's agenda is the hearing of visitors, item B, and that corresponds with item C2 on the agenda. And we are asking that members of the public, please give us your ideas that are potentially doable within the next month or so in regard to school safety. I believe that the first member of the public who is on the list for this evening is Mary Ann Clark. Could you please come forward to the microphone in the center of the room?
Good evening. My name is Mary Ann Clark, and I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity this evening. I have a few questions, but I also have some ideas that hopefully may be helpful for the school board and to resolve some of these issues. I think the best way to address some of these issues is to try to prevent them. If the students that instigate the bullying, inappropriate, and sometimes criminal behavior are receiving mental health services, are those services producing results? Are there benchmarks that the service providers are supposed to meet, and are they being met? That's a question, sorry, not a solution. But I do offer the following questions and suggestions. I don't know about all the working policies and procedures of the security team at the school, but I do have experience working for the Commonwealth Department of Corrections. And the extensive training received before working at a correctional institute, one tool to control bad behavior is a show of force. Is there an opportunity for the security team to ramp up their visibility in the school? Perhaps not in groups of 2 or more, but by increasing the amount of time spent outside of the actual security office. When the security team writes a citation to a student or has to deal with a student, that increases paperwork loads and subsequent off-campus time to attend hearings at the district magistrate's office. If the emphasis were more on visibility and positive engagement, particularly with the students that are initiating the bad behavior, some of the citations and in turn the off-campus time could be reduced as well. If there isn't funding to support hiring more security officers, would it be possible to hire a security staff support person to help process paperwork, do data entry, and monitor security screens so that the officers could have more time to spend being a presence with the actual students? I've only recently learned that the officer who's the dog handler has extensive experience in that field, both in the military and later with the Department of Corrections. I would ask, how much time is the canine officer utilized? How often does the canine receive training updates and testing? Is the dog present as students are coming into the building daily, during class changes, posted near bathrooms, or at least on a random basis? While some security practices cannot be publicized due to the nature of security and the occasional need for the element of surprise, knowing the answers to these particular questions may not only boost public confidence, but could possibly deter some of the activities, particularly those that are drug related. I have been told by a student that in order to go to the bathroom, they must request permission via their laptop to have the teacher in the class give them permission. The student then has to log in and out on a specific software system. if that is true, is it possible to red flag the students with known behavior issues so that when they request to go to restroom breaks, that security is alerted by the same software system? And perhaps they can be in that particular area, certainly not in the restroom, but at least within earshot in case an incident should begin to take place. It may seem like a burden to the security staff if in fact the problems are created by only about 6% of the students, then I would think that it's something that we could accommodate. Some of my commentary is posed as questions, but the intent is to spur conversation around them with specific stakeholders so that we can find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ann, could you please remain for a moment while I read back to you what we captured? And we didn't think through the logistics, I think, of this. I might need to move closer. Does this come up?
I could email you this.
So on the list, we have increase officer visibility and security support. Does that capture? Okay. The second one is increase the canine presence in the buildings. Okay. And the third one is related to the software system and bathroom visitation and data. I'm not sure though what it was making use of a software system or.
I've been told by a student that it's already in place,
Okay.
that in order to go to the restroom, they must get on their tablets and request from the teacher permission to leave the room to go to the restroom.
Okay.
And that teacher responds via the same software system.
Okay. So that would be basically to continue with that type of system. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Alerting security then.
Oh.
Yeah,
Or alert. Okay. So add there to that alerting
have the software system
alerts.
flag particular students who have known behavioral issues
Okay.
that when they are granted permission so that the security team can be in the area.
Okay. Thank you. Next up tonight is Christopher Corbin.
Before I speak, I would like to say that my suggestions will come later after I explain the logic behind them. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Christopher Corbin, a senior here at Central Mountain High School. I've come here tonight to say this simple truth. Solving problems involving everyone must be solved by involving everyone. Only through communication, cooperation, and coordination will we be able to solve the issues of violence in our schools. 2 weeks ago, I called for a committee to be formed that brought together the 4 pillars of the education community: students, parents, faculty, and the administration. Each has a role to play, and without each other, we are doomed to fail in our endeavors. Students provide the minds to be nurtured, the next generation, and are the people who, through resistance or acceptance, help make or break disciplinary reform. Parents are the taxpayers, the economic engines who provide the resources necessary to create the learning environment, as well as the chief disciplinarians and the army of volunteers needed to keep an enterprise of this magnitude running. The faculty teach the students every day, nurturing them and helping them to become the next generation of educated citizens. They are mentors and friends, not just mere sources of information. The administration acts as stewards of the resources given to it by the parents and taxpayers. It is not a dictator of policy, but the leader of a team of talented individuals, giving the students and faculty the support they need. However, the violence in the schools demonstrates how far this model has broken down. Students are unsure of their safety. Parents are unsure if their resources are being used effectively. Teachers are unsure if they will be given the support they need to enforce the rules, which leads to the administration. Be aware, I do not speak as a demagogue, nor am I attempting to turn people against the school board. I am aware of and appreciate the efforts that have been and are being made by the school board to combat violence. I mean no disrespect when I call out to you honorable board members. However, these efforts are not enough. The halls of the high school are filled with profanity, violence, and substance abuse. Yet the response to the calls for relief at the board meeting 2 weeks ago was this committee. It is a step in the right direction, but it fails to grasp the simple truth of the matter. We must work together. Solutions must not be thrown at the board from this pulpit, but discussed with all parties openly in a forum. The agenda for this meeting, as stated on the website and by your president, Mr. Dietrich, calls for the discussion of, quote, ideas potentially doable within the next month. I say to you this, a Band-Aid will not stop a bullet hole. Any solution that is not systematically and permanently implemented will not permanently fix the problem. This call for fixes doable before the end of the school year also neatly coincides with the fact that many school board members are up for re-election. While I hope it is not the case, it might appear to the layman that this meeting is not but a chance to shore up campaigns for this coming election. Prove otherwise, board members. Prove that you are servants of the public and not of ambition. Create a council of students, teachers, and parents with the board as its president that meets on a regular basis to discuss these issues, not as speeches to the boards, but as ideas to be explored. Let it meet in this auditorium and conceptualize, compromise, and ultimately carry out ideas beneficial to the whole of Keystone Central School District. For without consent of the governed, security is tyranny. Thank you for your time.
And so just to make sure, the idea is what we call it a stakeholder safety committee. Is that reasonable? So, which includes students, parents, and faculty? Is that a reasonable capture of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and good job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up on the list is Greg Walker.
Gosh, I don't need to say anything after him. My name is Greg Walker. I'm a father of 4 children, 3 of whom are still in the school system. My children are A students and they love their teachers, but they do not like coming to school. It is not wrong to blame families for the violence, but we might as well talk into the wind when we do that, because we do not control families. The public school is ours, however. Thank you for arranging this meeting tonight. I am not so interested in how we might respond to violence. Responding is simply too late. I am interested in preventing it through good behavioral and mental health. This might be more important than academics. I have tried to teach math to abused and neglected children. And it is simply not possible. There are more important things. Our children spend the best hours of their days and the most formidable years of their lives in the school. This is a golden opportunity to improve our entire society through the long arc of history. We can make good people, but we might not be doing that. We have some insight into what happens at this school. Not only do our children report to us, but we are also the ear of a number of very reliable sources on the inside. I'm directing most of my attention now to the audience. Here's an example. A child who had threatened another child with terrible violence was sent to the customized learning program classroom. They call it the CLP here. There, the staff allowed him to watch episodes of American Horror Story during class time. The list goes on and on. I directed this message to you, dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, because the administration and board do not need to hear it. We told the administration about this nearly 3 years ago. We told the board about this 15 months ago. How long does it take? We know of the possibility of another problem. There may be a tendency to shoot the messenger. We hear from people, what I'm about to say does not leave this room. We hear from people, you did not hear it from me. We hear from people, I would, but I have to look out for my family. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public school. It is not the mafia. The human resources at this school, highly educated professionals, every single one of them, might be wasted. I am not confident that the administration learns from them. That is a heck of an example to set in an educational institution. And the school has a policy, see something, say something. I am deeply concerned. The violence at the school could get much worse. We don't experience school shootings until we do. And our children go here. If life at this school has degraded over the last few years, I know of one common denominator, the administration. It is time for new blood. The sooner, the better.
So I think we only have two from that. One was, maybe we could categorize or state it as higher additional behavior and mental health personnel. Okay, and we'll capture that one and move to the second. And in regard to see something, say something, make the policy for real, something like that. Okay, make the policy for real. Yeah.
And perhaps change the
Okay. Or make, I think make the policy for real. Thank you. And next up on the list is Janelle Miller.
Hi, my name is Janelle Miller. I have 2 children who graduated from Central Mountain High School. I just finished up 40 years on my career and my employment working for child protection, for juvenile probation, for children's mental health, and now I'm a substitute teacher here at the district. I just have a few thoughts that I'd like to share based on my observations within the school. And I'm telling those things because I just don't want you to think I'm new in town. I've been around for a long time in lots of different systems, which work great when they work. I think that a lot of the trouble that I've witnessed anyway begins with the use of cell phones in school. Shared messages just spread like wildfire. And as I understand it, teachers are not permitted to take phones away from the students. So if that's the case, perhaps the use of an organizer similar to one used for calculators could be considered, where the students could be required to place their phones in the organizer during class and retrieve them at the end of the block, the class block. Specific, consistent consequences for negative behavior do not seem to be understood by all the staff. Don't throw things at me, teachers, but I would suggest an admin that parents be contacted every time after every incident of negative behavior. A parent cannot be expected to address their children's behavior if they are unaware of it. It's been my experience that at times being inconvenienced as a parent makes phone calls from the school more serious. There are high schools nearby that have a distinct staff presence at the doors in the morning. So that includes resource officers and perhaps a canine to just feel the temperature of the school for the day and, eavesdrop on students' conversations, frankly. I'd like to suggest that the idea of after-school detention be revisited. Currently, detention is simply sitting in this room for the last block of the day. It's not effective. It doesn't impact anybody in a negative way. When parents have to pick a child up after school hours, that's also an inconvenience for them, which hopefully would lead to a parent's willingness to address their child's behavior in school. The use of positive reinforcement can be good, but we should not overlook the impact of consequences for bad behavior, which include the blatant disrespect students currently show for teachers. That behavior is on us. Parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. Teachers are tired of it. They're burning out. Middle school cannot find substitutes because they are just the children there. The students are just so rude and disrespectful. And I say that from personal experience. We have parents who believe it's not my child. This is a school problem. He's with you all day. He doesn't act that way at home. Well, guess what? It is sometimes your kid. And it is sometimes your friends' kids and your grandkids. Guess what? That's just the way that it is. We're all in this together. I guess that's my point. We're all in this together. This is our community. I was a substitute just this morning at this high school. Teachers are monitoring both the halls and the restrooms, but our high school is ginormous. It is gigantic. There's no way for staff to be everywhere all the time. I also substitute in the elementary schools, and guess what? The disrespect from those students is almost as bad. The situation may be too late to fix for our older students, but let's please consider the future generation of Central Mountain High School kids. Bullying is not just a conflict, it is a form of victimization. The message has to be, your behavior is inappropriate and you must stop. We used to have alternative ed. We used to have adolescent day treatment. We had the Heart Academy. Was it expensive? Yes, it was. Was it effective? Sometimes. It can be if it's done correctly. So maybe it's time to reinstate some programs like that.
I think your time is up.
Okay,
You have-
finally, put God back in school. Thank you.
Just a moment, please. Just to make sure we capture everything. So in regard to cell phones, you're thinking cell phone bans or cell phones?
There's already a
better
cell
cell
phone
phone
ban, but it's
discipline?
not. But there is a cell phone ban. Most of the classrooms have big signs, no cell phones in this class.
Okay, so
And it's just not, the kids don't care.
so
They-
enforce cell phone policies.
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
The second one. Let's see. So consistent discipline in regard to, or consistent contact with parents when a child's behavior
Crosses the line.
is crosses the line. Okay, so consistent contact with parents when a child's behavior crosses the line. Okay. The third one is adding morning greeters to judge the mood of
To
the
have a
school?
presence.
Or
to
to have a presence, okay. And the next one is in states and after-school detention program,
Correct.
okay? The next one is related to disrespect for teachers, and how would that be something like applying discipline when that
That would
occurs?
be calling teachers mother effers, and I don't have to listen to you, just blatantly ignoring requests.
Yeah.
It's,
So to deal with that, we would apply disciplinary measures when that occurs?
yes, sir.
Okay. And the last one is really related to the high school being too large of an area to monitor, and maybe is that when utilize additional people and cameras to do a better job of monitoring, something like that?
I would imagine, yes.
Okay,
And there was also the suggestion that we look into an alternative education program.
okay, and then the last one is an alternative education program. Okay,
Actually, my last one was God, but okay.
okay. Thank you. Next up is Rebecca Movler.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Muthler, and I am a high school senior. I spoke at 2 previous board meetings regarding school safety. I am here again to voice my concerns and to suggest solutions. The Keystone Central School District motto is respect for yesterday, pride in today, and plans for tomorrow. Although this is a good saying, it doesn't really reflect our school. What did we respect yesterday? What are we prideful of today? And what are we planning for tomorrow? There is hardly any respect on a daily basis in this building. Students cut classes, roam the halls, talk back to teachers, and don't get along with their peers. If we are to have a better school, we need to have more respect among our school community. How can we be proud of our school when people move out of the community because they don't want their children going into KCSD? How can we be proud of a school that is faced with so much violence? Pride in a school should reflect the students and the good things going on. But it seems like at Central Mountain, all we hear about is the fights and the violence. It seems like we have no plans for the future. Teachers and students have voiced their concerns for a long time, and nothing is getting done. To get plans in place and plans carried out, we need to work together as a community. I believe we can do this by having student representatives on the school board. I have been told to voice my concerns through the student government instead of public meetings. But how can I do that when the student council is in charge of organizing events such as senior ball and senior trip, but they are not in charge of anything else? What the student government used to be is no longer in this high school. I mean no disrespect to my class president or any other students on the student council, but they simply have no power to make a change because it is no longer what it used to be. This is why, if I had to choose just one thing to change as soon as possible, I would choose to persuade everyone to work as a community. I would like to see student government come back to what it used to be, and I would like to see a good group of students and teachers represent the student and staff population as a seat on the board. If more student and teacher voices can be heard, I believe it could solve a lot of issues. Students need to have more responsibility. We need to bring our community together by working with our students, teachers, and the school board. We need to make sure that we can truly call our school a place where we respected yesterday, where we are proud of today, and where we have set plans for the future. I would like to thank the students, teachers, and parents here tonight in support of a better school. And to the board, thank you for listening. Please help make this school a better place.
Thank you.
Nice job. A few questions in regard to the first idea, in regard to the lack of respect. Would that include maybe disciplinary actions when there is a lack of respect that occurs?
That's correct.
Okay. The next item was a student representative on the school board, one or more.
Yes.
Okay.
I know there are other examples of schools. I've heard from different people that have a group of students or even a group of teachers that represent the school board. Like, it doesn't have to be one particular person, but I think that there's just a disconnect between students and the board. Like, we just need to come together and be on the same page.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, and the next one was improve this, what we have currently for student council and student governments.
That's correct. I know that we have a student council, but I've talked to the people that are in there, and all they do is plan things, events, ball, that kind of thing. But they aren't in anything like political. They don't have the power to make a change.
Okay. And looks like one more here, a teacher representative on the school board.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
one quick comments in regard to safety issues. If the students feels uncomfortable with the situation, they should please feel free to contact any trusted individual, including school board, teacher. Please do not feel that you must go through a certain channel if you are feeling unsafe. That is not correct. If you feel unsafe, please feel free to bring that to the attention of any trusted individual.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up is Sharon Wagner.
I came prepared with the long thing I wanted to say, but I'm just going to get right to the points. You need to bring back detention. These kids, they have no consequences. They're out of school suspensions or vacations to them. If maybe their parents were inconvenienced with having to pick them up after school, maybe something would be done on the home front. Expulsion. I know you guys don't do that very often, but something, whether it already is, something be set. You know, you do this, you get detention, you get it so many times, you get expelled. That way they know if they do something, it's coming. Back to your resource officers, you need to hire a female. You need to get females in them bathrooms or somebody that can go in those bathrooms. These kids know that bathrooms are off limit to teachers or whoever. You also need to have the teachers start standing outside their classrooms in between classes. I know when I was in school, you didn't hang around the hallways. You didn't have time to get into fights or arguments because the teachers were there. They put a stop to it before it even started. Also, there needs to be consequences for people witnessing these fights and not doing nothing. The parents. The parents really need to start taking a front on that at home. Tell your kids, you see something, you say something, you don't stand there and let it happen and record a video to get FaceTime likes or whatever. They need to have consequences for standing there and doing nothing. And students that have known histories or multiple histories of attacks or of the same situations, they need to be watched. They need to be put on a list. They need to have consequences. They need to know this stuff can't happen anymore. I was actually just trying to find something that I wrote earlier. I read something that says when adults respond quickly and consistently to bullying, they send a message that it's not acceptable. You guys are not doing that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll read back those items. The first one's reinstate detention after school. The second one is implement expulsions. The next one was hire a female officer. Next was ask teachers to stand outside of their classrooms during breaks between classes. Next was, consequences for those who stand by and do not report fights. And the next one was somehow identify students with a high number of behavioral issues. Go ahead. Okay. So mandatory online coursework for students who are under suspension, on suspension. Thank you. Next up is Chris Scaff.
I had a whole list that I was gonna say, but it's already been said. Good. I listen to these people and I think it's a shame that you have students coming to school board meetings, parents coming to school board meetings, asking for help, for security. That should be coming from you folks. They shouldn't have to come. I know the state micromanages everything that everybody in here does. But you have a bunch of officers stating around this room standing that you folks put the handcuffs on them. You folks need to get involved. If state says you can't do this, you can't do that, then you folks need to find a way to get around it. I suggest wholeheartedly that you listen to what's going on here. Because these folks obviously know more about what's going on than you guys do. And you need to listen. That's all I got to say. I can't top what's been said in here.
Okay, well, I think I heard one or two ideas there.
You've got good parents and good kids in here begging for help to be secure. Let me ask you this. Would you folks sitting up there let your kids act like this? Is that where we're at? You need to look in your own household first. That's all I got to say.
So just real quick here. So board members,
You
listen.
need to support the people
listen and
out here
support-
sitting. You need to support the kids because the kids someday are going to sit where you're at.
That's,
And these guys wearing the badges in here, if they're told, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, what are they even here for? You got to let them do their job. They're the pros.
okay, let police officers fulfill their role.
Everything I had wrote down on my list has been said in here 2 or 3 times. I'm not going to keep repeating it.
No, there's-
I'm
there's-
going to ask you folks to get off your cushion chairs and make this list happen.
Okay.
It's time
Thank
for
you.
you guys to do it.
Thank you. Next on the list is Michelle Whitney.
Thank you for holding this meeting, but before I start, Mr. Knopf, I don't need a mic to hear your name. Last name is Knopf, correct? Knopf, I'm sorry. I know. Oh, I'm just here to let you know that I can hear you just fine. You don't need a mic. And your constituents elected you, and your board president has no right to dictate to you what you say and when you say it. This is still America. I'm sorry, sir. Please do, sir. Thank you. More than welcome. Love to have you. My name is Michelle Whitney. The scope of this board meeting to discuss school violence was defined as narrow, and that focus was to be only on concerns and possible solutions for our district's deep-rooted issues of violence. As I see it, it's not really about the violence as much as it is the disconnect that exists, the brushing of issues under the rug. Depending on who you speak with, the number of girls who gathered in a bathroom to watch the beating of a young girl hovers around 27 or 28. And although this is one of the most atrocious accounts, it's far from the first instance of violence. My concern is how these girls were able to congregate in a bathroom to begin with. You asked for concerns, I'll limit myself to the top 2. The number 1 concern I have is that the school members are inept. School bullying and violence have been reported to this board for years. Board members have heard complaints by parents and students alike at public meetings just like this, but have taken no meaningful actions. If meaningful actions were taken, we wouldn't be here right now. It's your job to direct the district. It's your job to adopt solid policies that work. It's your job to make sure the school administration is doing their job and enforcing the policies you approve. Regardless of where the blame comes, ultimately, it lies directly on the shoulders of you, each and every one. My second concern is the board itself, not the members, but the content of it. Why there's no student representation on the board? One of the most important factors is a miss. Where are the student school board members? Jersey Shore Area School District has a current school board member. The student is included on the agenda and speaks on behalf of her fellow students. State College Area School District has student representation as well. Each year, 4 members of the student population are authorized to sit on the board. They advocate on behalf of the student body, the student government, and offer their own opinions. How can you, board members, have any idea what's going on in the district when there's no student representation on the board to tell you? There's no guidance from the very people who are the most important. You wait for them to appear at meetings to tell you there's a problem again and over and over. Your actions are reactive and not proactive. This board needs student input in order to be successful, to be proactive, and to have that opportunity to stop issues before they start. Also, I see it a little differently than some may. I see the omission of students on the board as stifling the student population from contributing and participating in the political process itself. In order for issues such as school violence to be handled effectively, you need to have kids. You need to have some skin in the game, a presence, a voice. As Watchdog founder Michael Remick always says, if you want someone to be responsible, you have to give them something to be responsible for. Students having input on school boards is a big plus. And I'll quote from the National School Board Association. One way to nurture the student body is to allow them to participate in the governing process of the school board. By creating opportunities for students to participate in the process, school leaders can help student board members to learn how to observe all laws and rules, how to resolve conflicts peacefully, how to demonstrate a commitment to the public good, and how to work for a community and cooperate with all stakeholders. This board is flawed and set up for failure from its very foundation. And without student representation, is doomed to continue to fail. Thank you.
Thank you. So the two school board should take meaningful actions and be proactive.
School board presence from the students.
Okay, and the second,
Students actually sit on the school board.
The second one was student representation on the school board.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Cindy Smith.
It's cool, B, but that's okay. Thanks for having us here tonight, and letting us speak our minds and for your undivided attention. I have a granddaughter that goes to Central Mountain High School. And I have a handful of family members that work for the district, whether teachers, nurses, or whatnot. But I had this letter I was going to read, but instead of reading this letter that I wrote, any of you can read my letter to the editor that was in last night's edition of the Lock Haven Express. That pretty much sums up the way I feel about the safety in our schools. I think cell phones absolutely should be a zero tolerance. Nada. We have a rule that says no cell phones. Why do kids have them? If the teachers can't take them, that's why we have officers. The teachers should have access to a way to communicate with these officers the entire school day. And when they have a child in a classroom that has a cell phone out, an officer should be notified, and an officer should escort the child out of the room, and the cell phone should be confiscated. There is no reason that law can not be upheld. I mean, children have to be responsible to the law. They have to be. And I know teachers get the blame, nurses get the blame, but I'm going to tell you, I saw a video of my granddaughter, somebody walking up behind her and punching her in the back of the head, probably 10 or 12 times. That entire fight was on video. That doesn't happen if it's not premeditated. And the videographer isn't told to do that. It doesn't happen. You don't get an entire fight. I saw the fight that happened a few weeks ago in the girls' restroom. That doesn't happen if it's not premeditated. You don't get an entire fight. You may get a little glimpse of it, but you're not, somebody is coordinating all of this. Hey, I'm going to go punch her and I want you to video it, okay? And then we'll send it to the school group that has videos of fights. There's an actual website for that. Lo and behold, I don't know how these kids can even stand and watch that without going for help, much less video it. It's disgusting. It makes me sick to my stomach when I see something like it. It's ridiculous. And I have to say, I know a lot of this falls back on parenting. Parenting today honestly sucks. That's the only way to say it. It does. There's so much lacks of parenting. Parents aren't there for their children. Children are raising themselves. And if children raise themselves, they go down a path that a good parent would not choose for them. They aren't going to take the good path. They're going to take the bad path. Let's face it, they're kids. I was a kid once, and I know every time I could sneak out or do something I shouldn't do, I did it. And we all have. I'm sure we've all been there. And another thing I think, which has already been discussed, we need to do 3 strikes, you're out. Baseball does it, and we can too. Some of these kids I know for a fact have been in trouble 8, 10, 12 times before they're expelled. And I have to agree with the young lady over here. Expelling a child or suspending a child for 3 days, that's a vacation. We should go back to in-school suspensions. When I was in school, and I'm not going to tell you how many years ago it was, we went into the office and sat in the office all day long if you were suspended. And they didn't care if you sat there and twiddled your thumbs all day. That's what you did. You didn't get to stay home. You went to the school and you sat in the office, or you sat in a chair right outside the office so everyone could walk by and see who was on in-school suspension. And another thing that I have is the hall monitoring and restroom monitoring. Every teacher at the end of their class should go to their door and stand in the hall. And I honestly think we would truly benefit from somebody being in the restrooms at all times. I don't care if you have to hire a Joe Schmo to go in that restroom and stand. That is where the fights are happening. That is where the vaping is happening. That is where the alcohol is being used. That is where kids go to skip class. And it's all because it's not being monitored. So if you get rid of that, you're gonna find that you eliminate a lot of this crap that goes on in these restrooms. Children should not be afraid to go to school. And they certainly should not be afraid to use the restroom when they are at school.
Thank you. I'll read these back real quick.
I don't have the answers. I know I don't have the answers. I'm not going to play like I'm God. But I know one thing, doing nothing is not the answer either.
Great, thank you, definitely. So zero tolerance
Zero.
for cell phones.
Zero.
Next one. Let's see, teacher to remove, wait, is that related to cell phones as well? Teacher,
Yeah,
teacher to take, confiscate the cell phone if there is one.
They should have access to contact one of the officers for the officer to come to the classroom, and the officer can confiscate the the cell phone.
Okay. The next one was 3 strikes
and you're out
Yep.
policy?
If you're in trouble 3 times, you should be expelled and go to some type of alternative school, whatever we have available.
Okay. Next one is implements in-school suspensions.
Yep, yep. You don't send them home. Keep them there.
The next one is hall and restroom monitoring.
Yep.
You know, for example, teachers outside of their doors during, in between classes. And the next one is a person being present in a bathroom at all times, like a bathroom attendant.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's everybody who signed up ahead of time. Tracy, were there any individuals who signed up this evening? Okay. The last item on the agenda for this evening is for us to let you know about some of the ideas that we're taking a serious look at implementing in the near term. Butch, are you prepared to talk about that? Okay. The next individual who was in the queue to speak about that was Mark, the safety director. Mark, are you prepared to speak about that this evening? Okay. Okay. All right. Would anybody like to make, would anybody on the board like to make a motion to allow Mark to describe or talk to the public about the ideas that we have in mind? Anybody? No? Not happening.
Vote to let him talk.
Anybody?
I will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it sounds like, all right. Right.
Hey. Excuse me. Hold on a second, sorry.
Hmm?
Go into executive session. Get legal advice. But we actually do this now or this our actual meeting we had already planned on discussing.
Okay. We can pause for a few minutes and talk to the school lawyer. He's present. We can step behind the curtain. Or we'll step out, we'll step right outside the room and be back in a couple minutes. Is that okay, David? Okay, we will meet the school lawyer right there at the side of the stage and come right back.
So why are they talking to the school lawyer? Because of what we can and can't discuss with the public at the moment. And I said I will, like,
We're about to get started. I can see them.
I'm gonna need your mic.
7:59 PM. We will continue this meeting.
Okay, Paulie.
I want to make a motion. I'm sorry, I have to mute my computer here. I want to make a motion to waive the confidentiality of the agenda items on the executive session from the 16th.
From March 16th.
I'll second that.
Proceed
Mr.
to
President,
vote, please.
Mr. President. Can anyone hear me?
Yes,
Would you repeat the motion? I couldn't hear Polly very clearly.
Hey, Paulie, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're doing the vote. You vote for
Okay.
this.
I vote for it.
Could somebody please report what the motion is so I know clearly what I'm?
Wayne, can you hear me?
Confirm.
Hello?
Hi, Wayne.
reluctantly, yes.
How do you vote?
Mom, I see my phone. Yeah.
Wayne, do you vote yes or no?
I don't know what I'm voting for because I'm not clear what the motion is.
Polly made a motion to waive confidentiality of the March 16th exec session.
I vote no.
Thanks, Wayne.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Motion passes.
Now that I'm allowed to comment, what I'd like to, first of all, is thank you all for coming tonight. It took a lot of gumption to get here and talk in front of us. But I want to assure you that most of the stuff you talked about, we've already discussed. So what I have, I'm going to read some stuff. I cannot divulge all of it because there's some stuff that we have there's confidentiality things that we cannot talk about. But I'm going to go through some of the agenda items we talked about at the security meeting we had the other night. And I assure you, most of the stuff you talked about, we've already talked about. It just takes a little bit of time. The first thing on our list was the restroom safety, the drugs, the violence fights, lack of self-regulation, self-control in the restroom. We're aware of it. We know there's something that has to be done. We don't know what. We can't put cameras in the restroom. Kind of difficult to take a teacher out of a classroom and put that teacher in a restroom. Now who's going to watch the classroom? So we're trying to find a way to monitor the classroom. There's some devices we're looking at that can assist us in doing that. We actually we're working on getting some prices and some ways of installing things that might help. We know the parents and public are concerned about fights. We all are. It shouldn't be happening. It should be a safe environment for our kids to go to in school. The one lady commented, and I've been reading articles in the Express and the Record, that the problem's not a school problem, it's a society problem. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. We have to get a grip on this from the kids at home up to the kids through 12th grade. We have to get a grip on it from home. There's a lot of apathy between the students and inactive bystanders. Unfortunately, there's no law that says you have to report something. We can do the best we can to try to instill in our students, and you as a parent have to instill in them that if they see something wrong, they need to report it. We have students here tonight that talked about being afraid to do stuff and wanting to do stuff. So we're asking them all, if you see something, report it. You can call, if nothing else, get on your cell phone that you really shouldn't have in school and call 911. 911 then will be dispatching someone to that area. Report it. Unfortunately, most of the problems we're having stem from lack of mental health and behavioral issues. There's no real, there's a very large lack of mental health and behavioral resources in Clinton County. We're trying to provide stuff that was provided years ago by the county. It's not provided any longer. We need help getting that stuff done. It's not just our job for 8 hours a day. These kids need that support, the other 16. So we have to find mental health and behavioral stuff in the county. So we're looking at that. There's already been changes in the coverage in the building. The teachers are outside, like someone brought up, standing outside the door. It's already been talked about. Mr. Verley's already talked about having the teachers do that. The staff is supposed to be more visible in the hallway. We want them out, just if they can stand in their doorway looking at the hallway, we're asking them to do that. They've already purchased more radios for staff to monitor the hallways. So if they see something, to make it easier to report. There is a school improvement committee made up by the faculty, and Mr. Verley reported on that. We have a positive behavior incentive program. We hope that could help by rewarding the positive behavior of the kids, give them that, dangle that carrot in front of them instead of dangling the stick. We've already talked about denying privileges from the kids. If they have infractions, denying them the right to park on the property, especially denying them the ability to go to special events, participate in different events going on. Some of the short-term stuff we talked about is trying to adjust the existing staff to increase coverage. If we have to increase the staff, increase the staff. So we recommended that some things go forward to the personnel committee to see about hiring additional staff, whether it be security, hall monitors, what behavioral people. We're kind of torn. Do we need to provide more security, or do we need to provide more mental/behavioral health people? Kind of feel the behavioral thing would be taken care of if we provide support in that area. So we're looking at both ways. As far as Duchess is a dog. Officer Van Gorder and Duchess is available all day long. They're available for the kids to see, the kids to know, and hopefully can help. Unfortunately, someone suggested you have the dog go by the kids. You're not allowed to do that. You can't. The dog's not allowed to sniff the kid to see if they have drugs. It's against the law. Some of the technology we're looking at, some detectors for vaping in the restrooms, occupancy in the restroom. Because I heard Michelle, I think you said there was 27 or 28 kids in the restroom. I think I don't know how you can fit that many in there. I don't think the restroom is that big, but whatever. That's way too many people in a room. So we're going to try to look about limiting the amount of people in the restrooms. Cell phones. We recognize cell phones are an issue. We have cell phone policies. The teachers try to enforce the cell phone policies. The kids tell the teachers, no, they're not giving up the cell phones. Unfortunately, they're not breaking any law. Law enforcement can't take the cell phone from them because they didn't break a law. It's a school policy, not a law. So we're looking at trying to just doing something with the cell phone. We also realize it's not an issue just in the school. We realize it's an issue in society. So maybe we're trying to set up meetings with outside agencies so we can work together instead of duplicating resources, work together and provide more resources. We're always talking about some more additional help with administration at Central Mountain High School, Bucktail High School. We're looking at trying to provide some help with the parenting sessions through the KCSD community education. So maybe if we help provide parenting education for parents that are struggling, that could help. We have a meeting set up with a behavior expert for a teacher administrator training on additional behavioral leadership strategies. We have to do some bystander training, we realize. So if students are seeing stuff, we need to make sure they're not afraid to report it and make sure they report it. Someone commented earlier on it's actually called the Easy Pass system. It's where the kids have to sign out. You go to the hallway. So we discussed that. And I think the suggestion that I don't remember who said it, but the person said it that if a student is causing trouble, they have to be red flagged. It's being done. So if I'm having a problem with Lopez's article in the paper, him and I can't go in the hallway at the same time if we have problems. It's monitored on this Easy Pass system. So that's being done, but we want to make sure it's monitored and done, I guess, more proficiently. So and that's pretty much all I can talk about. So did it answer most of your questions? I hope. So if there's anything else, I'm hoping we have more for you at the April 13th work session. We should have more stuff available to talk about. And then hopefully we can vote on stuff and start getting it implemented as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's it. 8:10 p.m. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.